Oh, the mic's on now.
Hey everybody.
Oh,
It's pretty busy, isn't it? He's going to have a little sleep here.
I thought this was a psychological evaluation.
I've got my pen, let me just take some notes.
Just make myself comfortable.
Guys, it's great to be here with the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. Ken, where do I even start? I followed your career from an early age, UFC Hall of Famer, pioneer of MMA, businessman, activist, general legend. Let's face it, you've had a very, very illustrious career in sport and business. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. But what I kind of want to talk to you about is Ken Shamrock, and where did Ken come from?
Well, I came from a broken home. I was in group homes most of my life, in and out of juvenile halls. Ended up in a Shamrock boys' home at the age of 13 years old till I was 18. I was in that home, graduated from that home, and then eventually went on to play college, and then found the fighting world over in Japan, did well there, and then of course the UFC came around and I started fighting there. But basically where I came from was a broken home, and all along the way, fighting to survive.
Fighting to survive. And interesting, you mentioned Japan. How did you go from a young age of in the States to founding the Pancrase, the wrestling championship?
Well, actually, I founded Lions Den, which is a fighting team. But I was over in Japan, where before over here in the States, which we called the Ultimate Fighting Championship, was mixed martial arts. But over in Japan, it actually started over there first. And so I flew over there to actually try out for the Pancrase organization. I remember my first tryout, it was about two hours. Ended up passing that tryout. 3 months later, I fought in front of 17,000 people and ended up winning that fight. And from that point on, I never looked back.
And you came back to the States to get involved in the newly started UFC and fought in UFC 1. We see nowadays with the likes of Gunnar Nelson and Conor McGregor, they're literally packing out press conferences, and it's all about the showbiz and the glitz. In the very, very early days, what was it like?
Well, earlier days, it was completely different. You're talking about, today it's mixed martial arts, and in those days, it was no holds barred. And when we say no holds barred, I mean, literally it was no holds barred. It was bare knuckle, no rules, no time limit. So you would go in there, and guys would be getting kicked when they're on the ground, and I mean, there's literally no rules. So you'd fight 4 times in one night. So it was completely different from what it is today. Obviously, as time went on, they started making it more fighter-friendly or more safe for the fighters, more controlled environment. And of course, with that comes in marketing and sponsorships and more money. And that's what you're seeing today. You saw the roots of it, just like with any business or anything you get into. When it first starts out, there's just a lot of things that have to develop. And the earlier guys, like myself, were the ones that helped the sport develop. So guys like Conor McGregor and so on could actually reap the benefits today, because now there's more sponsors involved, there's more money involved, so these guys are able to make more money.
We chatted backstage about the very early days of it, and you mentioned that it was just you, and it was no hard bad fighting, and there wasn't really much support there. Do you think the UFC has kind of lost its originality over the years as the marketing has come in and as tickets have come in and sponsorship?
Well, I mean, I think that's with anything that we see today. When you talk about, things when they get started, like football back in the day where they wore leather helmets and no face guard, you're talking about back then where there was basically anything goes. Well, as time goes on, when you get marketing in there and they're going to put it on TV, then you got to have blocks of time. So it has to go in that direction, because otherwise the money wouldn't come in. So you have to see it move forward and actually be more safe.
And you were one of the very first UFC Hall of Famers, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was, like I said, I was in the very beginning, not a whole lot of money there, and a whole lot more injuries. Because like I said, you fought 4 times in one night in basically a street fight. Yeah.
And so for going from street fighting, how did you transition into the WWF? And what was it like going from a no-holds barred bare-knuckle boxing to a kind of showbiz, showmanship, more of an entertainment kind of career?
Well, it's difficult too, because when you talk about that transition, most people, when I was doing the pro wrestling, looked at me as this no-holds-barred fighter. So when I go in there, it was like building trust to work with these guys. So when I went in there, the first probably 6 months was really building the trust with my opponents, being able to let them know I wasn't going to punch them in the face with a right hand and knock them out by accident, that, you know, I had the ability to do the entertainment along with them.
And did you get approached by somebody to join the WWF?
Yeah, I was, in fact, one of the reasons why I got involved with it was because during a period of time, there was so much political outrage towards this no-holds-barred event that every single town that we went to, we were constantly in court trying to keep it sanctioned in the city, because they were trying to ban it everywhere we went. Well, so they spent so much money trying to do that, that eventually they ran out of money. So, you know, I think we all understand that you have to be able to support your family or support your way of life if you're going to do a career. And that was really always my purpose, is if I could support my family and can do what I love doing, then I'll do it. But the minute I can't make that money and be able to support my family the way I need to, then I'll have to do something else. And that's basically what happened, was they weren't able to pay me what I needed. And so I started searching for other opportunities, and Vince McMahon called me right back and said, hey, you know what, we'd like to use you. And he came up, as we know it today, came up with an idea to help pro wrestling get more mainstream and become more popular, and we called that the Attitude Era. That Attitude Era basically came from the mixed martial arts that I brought into it.
Yeah. And I suppose, kind of going from that, you went from the WWF then back to UFC for a while.
Yes.
Correct? And then you kind of moved into business. So some of you may say, what's a UFC Hall of Famer, an athlete, doing at a tech conference?
Right.
But I'll let you answer that one.
Well, it's kind of funny too, is people goes, man, I would have never thought you'd have been here. I was like, oh, okay, so I guess it is that kind of thing. We're just all meatheads.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow. But really, to me, it's an amazing transition, and I got to see it firsthand. Is that as athletes, whether it's football, baseball, whatever it is, even celebrities, no matter what it is you're doing, when you start to come to probably the end of your career, that light at the end of the tunnel starts getting brighter and brighter and brighter. You know the end is coming. And you start to panic because you live in a certain lifestyle, something that you're comfortable with. And as we've seen, if you're paying attention to a lot of celebrities who end up coming to the end of their career, most of them, which ESPN did a special on this, most of them, after about 5 years, are broke. And it's because they're used to living a lifestyle, but they're not making the same kind of money. So what I thought was like, you know what? I need to figure out, I know I'm worth something. And I know popularity is worth something. So I remember trying to figure out, how could I monetize my popularity and be able to make money off of what I've created over these years. And I looked at guys like George Foreman, you know, with the grill, William Shatner with Priceline, and watching how all these guys actually made money off their name. And I was like, man, I can do that. But I didn't have the language or the understanding on how to do it. So I reached out to several different people trying to find that combination. And eventually I came across who is my business partner now, Des Woodruff, who really started explaining to me how to use my celebrity status and my my popularity towards getting equity ownership of different companies and businesses. And I'm like, man, that's exactly kind of what I'm looking for. So since that time, we've put together multi-million-dollar deals off of being able to leverage my popularity towards businesses. And so for me, it was like another fight for me. It was like another challenge for me. And so I remember even here, as I'm walking around listening to different people talk, it's amazing on listening to the fight that's in a lot of these guys' minds when it comes to business deals. It's almost like being in the ring, sizing up your opponent. And like I said, I eavesdrop on a lot of conversations, so if you ever see me around, you know I'm listening. So I
won't get in a headlock, I swear.
I listen to all these conversations, and it's amazing to see the different types of language that's used. But it's all about leveraging and positioning yourself for a good business deal.
And I suppose pairing up with somebody that can kind of push it in the right direction and you can work with to build your brand is very important. But for somebody who's been involved in the entertainment business for so long, and then on The Ultimate Fighter as well as a coach, you've been building your own brand for a very long time. So some would say that you are a natural born entrepreneur anyway. Do you think, like, Des is amazing if he's there, but do you think that you would have been able to do it yourself without Des? About your other business partners?
You know, I think that's the important part, is that you got to know your limitations. You got to know what you're capable of. And it's something that I've done my whole career, knowing what my abilities are and what I'm capable of doing, and then being able to understand to bring other people in that you know can do the things that you can't do, and to let go. Don't try to control everything, because eventually, if you try to control all of it, somewhere in there you're going to let something down. And that could cost you huge. So with me, I think that really my strongest quality is basically knowing my limitations and being able to get people involved that I know will pick up where I'm short.
And we always hear about entrepreneurs kind of talking about how great it is to go on their own and the great achievements there is and the ups, but there are equally as many downs as ups. And you've been around, you've traveled the road a long time, you've had it tough. Do you think that one of your main attributes would be being resilient? And I suppose how would you challenge that into your business? And what advice would you give the audience in terms of kind of going that step further and taking on the chin that not every day is rosy?
Well, I mean, I'll answer all that question into one answer.
I can break it up if I want.
Really, it's about this. And you hear your coaches say it all the time, and it's about trusting the process. Not only does that go in sports, but it also goes in life, and it also goes in business. Is that you're going to have the ups and downs. On the downs, this is where mistakes are made. When you're in that down moment, is that you start trying to force things to happen, or you start trying to take shortcuts, or you make bad decisions because you're in a pressure situation. Is that sometimes you just need to let the process run, allow it to develop, and not try to force it too much. And really, that's kind of, and I've been through it a lot in my career, where sometimes you just got to sit back and allow time to work it out for you. And I think that's been probably things that I've learned the most. That's been helped me be very successful. Is to be able to sometimes just sit back and let things happen, without just letting go, just watching and making sure you're surveying everything. But sometimes just step back and let things happen, and then most of the time they're going to work themselves out. And then you put yourself in a position, when you start going up, you put yourself in a position to be able to take advantage of the good things that are coming your way.
And in the last 12 months, have you ever come to a challenge where you've been, you know what, this isn't worth it, I'm going to throw the towel in and pursue a different opportunity?
I don't think I've ever been in a position to where I just wanted to quit or give up. I mean, like, I've been in some times where it was rough, but I've never been in that situation where I wanted to give up or quit. I've been in situations where the door that I wanted to open up didn't, but other doors did. And that's part of that thing I'm talking about, is trusting the process. Sometimes you may want or think you want to go in a certain direction, but there may be other things. If your eyes are open and you're not just tunnel vision on one thing, you'll start seeing other opportunities around you that might be a better deal for you. But like I said, if you're focused on really trying to get one thing done, that's about being in that valley, your exit might be something that you don't expect.
And I want to touch on as well, when we think of tech companies and entrepreneurs, we constantly think of being the next Mark Zuckerberg or being the next Elon Musk. That necessarily isn't being successful. Everybody is successful in themselves and in their own mind. For you, do you want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg? Are you happy just doing some deals and providing for your family and making a name for yourself?
No, I think anybody that wants to do things or to create things, entrepreneurs or successful people, there's never a limitation. I don't necessarily shoot for the stars, but it's not like that I don't think that I want to get there. But I think you take it one step at a time and be able to stay within your capabilities. And I believe that in that process, you will go as high as you want to go. And don't be, for me, I'm not going to be happy with achieving a goal and then stopping there. I'm going to achieve that goal, and then I'm going to reach for another goal.
And you were talking about processes there. When I just want to revisit some of the wrestling and the MMA for a second. When you're in the octagon, or when you're in the squared circle, as they'd say, what is going through your head?
Excuse me?
And what thoughts are going through your head when you're in the ring?
Pain.
Should I be worried?
No, we're not. I don't think we're not in a cage. We're good. No, basically, when I walk into a ring, I know when I first did it. Obviously, I was young. I didn't have a whole lot to fall back on, and so this was my way out of poverty. And so when I looked at the opponent across the ring, my thought was to destroy him because he's in the way of my success. And anybody who gets in my way, they're going to get hurt. I mean, that's literally the thought I had. As I got successful and became, famous, per se, my thought process changed. It went from, trying to figure out and train how to beat my opponent and to get my hand raised. But the anger and the determination to want to destroy him became different as I became a professional.
And they're obviously skills.
Sorry about that. Turn my phone off. Hello.
They're obviously skills that you brought into the business side as well. But if you were to go back in time and to visit Ken Shamrock of 10 years old, would you tell him to do exactly what you did? Or would you say stay away from the MMA and go into finance? Or what would you say to him?
Well, that's tough because at 10 years old, I was living out of a car and, stealing food, lunch money from kids, just not a good situation. So I know in that situation, it would be hard to tell me anything at that point because I was in survival mode. But if it was something I could say to him man, especially back then, man, I was pretty lost. I'm not sure what I could say. I really don't. Just thinking about it and the mindset that I was in, I had nothing else to turn to. So, really what saved my life was I got stabbed, ended up in the hospital, got fingerprinted, got arrested, and then ended up in placement. And really, that was the best thing that could have happened to me was to get arrested and put in placement because then that process led me into a Shamrock boys home, which then led me into being able to go to school and play sports and vent my frustration. And all that ended up leading into me being a good athlete. And when you're a good athlete, I think most people have seen this on TV in many different times, people want to be associated with a good athlete and they want to help you make sure you get the grades to be able to play the sport. And then, of course, from there, there's opportunities that come your way and you grasp onto them. So, but like I said, at 10 years old, man, there wasn't really a whole lot I could have told me at that time.
I'm just watching the clock here.
Duck.
2 quick fire questions. First one, top 3 attributes that you think entrepreneurs should learn to be successful.
Say that again?
The top 3 attributes entrepreneurs should learn, top 3 skills entrepreneurs should learn to be successful.
Well, first of all, I would have to say determination, and then, of course, definitely work ethic, and never give up. Always reach. Don't think that you're not able to reach for the stars because if you don't try, you'll never know.
Good one. And the last question, obviously being an Irish man, I have to ask, if you were in the ring tomorrow morning with Conor McGregor, who'd win?
Me! Come on!
Good question. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Ken Shamrock, the world's most dangerous man.
Thank you. Thank you.